When a poor fisherman casts his net one last time, he doesn't catch a fish. He pulls up a brass jar sealed with the seal of Solomon. But when he opens it, out comes a terrifying giant djinn, screaming that he's going to kill the man who freed him. Why would a djinn want to murder his savior? And what secret has been trapped at the bottom of the sea for hundreds of years? This here is the story of the fisherman. In a time long forgotten, when djinns whispered beneath the waves and fate hid behind the smallest of choices, there lived a poor fisherman, old in years but rich in heart. Every morning, he cast his worn net into the restless sea, never more than 4 times a day, for that was his oath, his rhythm, his limit. But one fateful morning, after 3 empty casts and a heart weighed down by hunger and hope, his net grew heavy with a secret the ocean had guarded for centuries. It wasn't fish that tangled in his ropes. It was a sealed brass jar, blackened by time, etched with the mark of King Solomon himself. And when he pried it open, smoke curled out like a storm reborn, forming a colossal figure that shook the very sand beneath his feet. "I am a djinn," it thundered, "and I have waited centuries to destroy the first man I see." This is not just a tale of sea and storm. It is a tale of wit over wrath, of cleverness over cruelty. The fisherman's mind must now outswim the tides of time, or be drowned in the wrath of 1,000 years. In the hushed blue hour before dawn, when the sea still whispered secrets to the wind, an old fisherman trudged along the jagged shore. His feet were bare, cracked by time and tide, and his back was bent not only by age, but by the weight of years spent wrestling with hunger and fate. His name had long been forgotten by most, but those who passed him in the markets simply called him the poor fisherman. Each morning, he cast his net only 4 times, no more, no less, for he believed, as did his ancestors, that to take more from the sea would stir the wrath of fate. On this morning, with a sigh that trembled with quiet hope, he whispered his prayer to the waves and flung his net into the dark waters. The first cast brought up only a tangle of black mud and broken shells. The second yielded a heavy stone wrapped in seaweed. The third came back with the carcass of a donkey, bloated and decayed. His shoulders sagged. 3 chances gone, and only 1 remained. He clutched the net in trembling hands, eyes lifted to the dull sky. "O Lord," he murmured, "I have children who wait with empty bowls. Let this last cast carry more than sorrow." With all the strength he had, he hurled the net into the sea one final time. And as the water stirred and the net grew taut, he felt something different, something heavy, yet not lifeless. He pulled with all his might, the cords cutting into his palms, until a strange shape broke the surface. A tall, sealed brass jar, adorned with ancient glyphs and capped with lead. The old fisherman blinked. "What fortune is this?" he whispered. "It looks more like a relic than a prize." He had no idea that this jar would not only feed his family, but change the fate of his entire life. At the first light of dawn, the fisherman wandered toward the sea with his basket in one hand and his old net slung across his back like a sleeping serpent. The waves greeted him with a quiet murmur, and the breeze whispered secrets from distant lands. He stood barefoot on the cool sand, kissed the hem of his robe for luck, and cast the net for the first time. But when he pulled, it resisted like a mule. His arms strained, and his spine ached, yet he dragged it inch by inch, only to find stones, broken shells, and the bones of fish long dead. No coin, no catch, only the weight of futility. Unshaken, he murmured a prayer and cast the net a second time. The sea answered with a silence so deep it made his heart sink. This time, the net returned with mud and tattered refuse, the discarded cloth of the world. He tried again. A third time. Now sweat gleamed on his brow, and his hands trembled. The net brought back nothing but shattered glass and twisted metal, the ruins of forgotten ships. The fisherman sat down, exhausted, hungry, and near tears. 3 times, he whispered, "I am owed a fourth, for Allah is merciful, and fortune hides behind the final veil." He kissed the net and cast it one last time with all the strength left in his soul. The moment it touched water, the net danced. It swelled like a balloon in the sea's embrace. His heart thundered. He gripped the ropes and pulled. And out came not fish, nor pearl, nor coral, but a brass jar, sealed with lead, etched with strange, curling letters, and topped with the stamp of Solomon himself. The fisherman's eyes widened. His breath caught. He turned the jar over and over, feeling its weight, sensing a strange warmth within, like a sleeping flame. This was no ordinary relic. This was the kind of treasure that changed a man's fate. And as the waves sighed behind him, the fisherman heard something move inside the jar, a sound like breath caught in a bottle. He held his silence. Then slowly, he began to owe. The fisherman looked at the bottle with curiosity and awe. It was large, old, and sealed with a thick, leaden stopper marked by strange symbols and the faint trace of a royal sigil long forgotten. His fingers trembled as he turned it over, and to his astonishment, sand and smoke began to swirl within the glass. He felt a shiver travel up his spine. He quickly uncorked it. No sooner had the stopper popped than a thunderous rumble shook the shore. A spiral of black smoke shot into the sky, rising higher than the tallest palm trees. The fisherman stumbled backward in fear. The smoke thickened and took form, a towering figure with blazing eyes and limbs like ancient tree trunks. A giant, terrible genie stood before him, arms crossed over a chest scarred with time. The genie's voice was like wind through a canyon. "I am the genie of the bottle, bound by Solomon the Wise. Released after centuries, and as is my vow, I must now kill the one who freed me." The fisherman gasped. "Kill me? But I saved you. Why such cruelty?" The genie grinned bitterly. "In the first 100 years, I vowed riches to the one who set me free. None came. In the next 100, I swore to grant power beyond imagination. Still, no one came. By the 3rd century, I promised to grant 3 wishes. No one. And so, in my rage, I swore that the next to open my prison would die." The fisherman, heart pounding, dropped to his knees and pleaded, "Have mercy, O great spirit. Surely you cannot punish kindness with death." But the genie only laughed. The wind picked up. The sea roared louder. The sky dimmed as the genie reached toward him. And then, the fisherman's mind sparked with something unexpected. Not just fear, but an idea. Something clever. The fisherman's hands trembled as he uncorked the brass stopper. With a hiss of ancient air and the scent of forgotten centuries, a swirl of black smoke burst forth. It coiled like a serpent, growing thicker and higher until it blotted out the sun. The fisherman staggered backward, his mouth agape. From the heart of the smoke, a figure began to form, towering, muscular, with glowing eyes and a voice that rumbled like a storm. "I am the genie of the sea," it roared. "Freed after centuries, I bring death to my liberator." The fisherman's heart froze. "But I saved you." The genie laughed, a sound that echoed across the waves. "Indeed, you did. But hear my tale before I crush you, so that you understand why kindness no longer sways me." Afraid but intrigued, the fisherman nodded. The genie sat upon a jagged rock, and as the sun struggled to pierce the thick smoke around them, it began to speak of its long imprisonment, of betrayal, rage, and broken promises. And so, beside the lapping sea, man and spirit faced each other, ancient pain meeting innocent wonder, the story of the genie spilling forth like a tide refusing to turn back. The bottle lay forgotten on the sand, its silence a warning. The fisherman stared into the billowing smoke, heart pounding. What had he done? Was this some cursed spirit, angry at being disturbed? But before he could run, the smoke began to coil and twist, pulling together, tightening like a thread being spun by unseen hands. And then, before his astonished eyes, a colossal figure emerged, towering, broad-shouldered, with skin like molten bronze and eyes like burning coals. It was a genie. The fisherman fell to the ground in terror, whispering prayers, his face pressed against the sand. The genie, now fully formed, stretched and let out a roar so mighty that the sea itself seemed to shiver. Then, in a deep, thunderous voice, it spoke. "O son of Adam, prepare to die." The fisherman's breath caught. He raised his eyes slowly. "Die? But why? I freed you." The genie laughed bitterly, the sound echoing like rolling thunder over the sea. "Yes, you did, but you are too late to gain my favor." He began to pace, his feet sinking into the wet shore. "Know this, mortal. I was once a mighty spirit, defiant of Solomon himself. But the great king imprisoned me in this bottle and cast me into the sea. For 100 years, I promised riches to the one who would free me. But no one came. For the next 100, I offered power and kingdoms. Still no one came. The centuries passed. Hope turned to rage. The fisherman trembled. And now? The genie stopped and looked him dead in the eye. "In the final 100 years, I swore this. Whoever freed me, I would kill without mercy, for the world had forgotten me and I had forgotten mercy." The fisherman's lips trembled, but something sparked within him, an ember of cleverness, a flicker of the very thing that had always kept him alive, wit. He bowed low again, buying time, voice shaking but steady. "O mighty genie, you mean to tell me you truly came from that tiny bottle?" The genie narrowed his fiery eyes. "Yes, I did." The fisherman tilted his head thoughtfully. "But I don't believe it. That bottle is far too small." The genie growled. "You dare doubt me, mortal?" And the fisherman replied, "Only because it seems impossible." The trap had been set. The fisherman stared in disbelief as the giant fish twisted in the net, gleaming with golden scales, unlike anything he had ever seen. Its eyes sparkled with intelligence, and before he could react, the fish spoke in a deep, echoing voice. "Spare me, kind fisherman," it said. "I am no ordinary creature of the sea. I am a genie, cursed into this form by a sorcerer's rage, trapped for 100 years. The fisherman's heart skipped. A speaking fish? A genie? This was no longer a simple day on the job. It was something out of a dream or a tale from the Corfihasses of old. "I don't want to harm you," the fisherman replied, loosening the net slightly, but not fully releasing it. "If you're truly a genie, prove it." The fish shimmered, twisted in mid-air, and suddenly vanished in a cloud of mist. From it rose a towering figure, dark and majestic, his face ancient, eyes filled with pain and power. "You freed me," the genie thundered. "And yet, your kind has only brought me suffering. For this, I shall kill you." The fisherman stumbled back in horror. "But I just saved you." The genie's face grew cold. "Listen well, mortal, before your end. I once swore to grant 3 wishes to whoever freed me. But as centuries passed, no one came. Bitterness grew in my soul, and now I vow to kill every man who dares unseal my prison." The fisherman's mind raced. He had heard tales like this before. And in those tales, cleverness, not strength, saved the day. He took a breath, calmed his heart, and said, "You say you were trapped in this bottle? That tiny vessel?" The genie sneered, "Yes. For 100 years. But, oh, you are enormous. How could you ever fit in such a small flask?" The genie narrowed his eyes. "Do you dare doubt me?" "No," the fisherman said, pretending to be confused. "I simply cannot believe it. Show me." The genie growled. "Very well. Watch and despair." With a whirling gust, the massive figure dissolved into a curling vapor, rushing back into their brass bottle. The fisherman, quick as a falcon, grabbed the stopper and sealed it tight. Then he laughed, a short, nervous, triumphant laugh, and whispered to the bottle, "Perhaps you'll think twice before threatening a poor fisherman." The giant genie, now trapped once more inside the brass jar, roared in fury. His voice shook the very sands around the fisherman as he thumped and banged the sides of his prison. "You may have outwitted me this time, mortal," he bellowed, "but your fate is sealed. When I am freed again, your doom will come." The fisherman, heart still pounding, looked around cautiously. He knew this was no ordinary spirit. This was a creature of immense power, bound by magic older than the kings who once ruled the land. Yet, despite the danger, the fisherman remained calm. He tucked the heavy jar under his arm and began the long trek home, his mind racing with plans. As he walked through the marketplace, the crowds whispered and stared. Some crossed themselves, fearful of the cursed bottle. Others admired the courage of the poor man who dared capture a genie. At home, the fisherman told his wife of the incredible encounter. She gasped in fear but trusted his wisdom. That night, as the sea sang its lullaby outside their humble hut, the fisherman prepared a meal and placed the jar on the floor. He whispered prayers of protection and sat beside it, his eyes never leaving the sealed bottle. For he knew this was only the beginning. The genie was angry, and no spirit could remain imprisoned forever. As darkness wrapped the village like a velvet cloak, the fisherman sat quietly beside the sealed jar. The gentle lull of the waves mixed with the crackling of a small fire, casting flickering shadows on the walls of his humble home. Though the bottle remained still, the fisherman felt a weight heavier than the jar itself pressing on his soul, the knowledge that the genie's fury was far from spent. Suddenly, A soft humming filled the air, a whisper carried by the night breeze. The bottle began to tremble, its surface shimmering faintly under the moonlight. The fisherman's eyes widened with caution, but he did not move. He had learned patience, and now he needed all his courage. From the depths of the jar, a voice echoed, low, deep, and laced with menace. "Foolish man," it hissed, "you think you have won? I have been trapped for centuries, but my time will come. And when it does, your life and soul will be mine." The fisherman bowed his head. "Great Spirit, I do not seek conflict, only mercy." The voice chuckled darkly. "Mercy? I am beyond mercy. But hear this, a wise man can bargain even with death." The fisherman looked up, hope flickering in his tired eyes. "Tell me, then," he said softly, "what bargain would you offer?" The jar stilled, and the night held its breath. The night air grew still, as if the very stars paused to listen. From the depths of the brass jar, the genie's voice spoke again, slower now, weighed with centuries of bitterness and longing. "Very well, fisherman," it said, "if you seek a bargain, I shall speak. For my freedom, I demand a promise that you will release me completely, no tricks, no traps, and allow me to roam the earth as I once did, with power to shape the fate of men and kings alike." The fisherman's mind raced. To free such a being was to invite chaos and destruction, yet he knew the genie's wrath would grow worse if kept imprisoned. He weighed his options carefully, his heart pounding in his chest. "But what if you break your word?" the fisherman asked, voice steady but wary. The genie's laughter echoed like thunder. "I am bound by the laws that hold me in this vessel, mortal. Break the promise, and I shall return to my prison forever, powerless. Keep it, and I shall grant you great fortune." The fisherman nodded slowly. "Then we have a bargain. But first, tell me your story, the story of your imprisonment and your rage." The genie's form swirled within the jar, the smoke settling into an image of a distant kingdom bathed in golden light. The smoky form of the genie swirled and shimmered inside the brass jar, casting flickering shadows on the walls of the fisherman's humble home. With a voice as old as time, the genie began his tale. "Long ago," he said, "I was one of the mightiest spirits, defiant and proud, ruling the winds and storms. But King Solomon, wise beyond all men, bound me with spells of iron and fire. For my rebellion against his will, I was trapped within this jar, cast into the depths of the sea, to await a fate decided by time and fate alone. For 100 years, I vowed to reward the one who freed me with treasures untold. But none came. For the next 100, I promised power and kingdoms. Still, none dared release me. In the third 100, I swore to grant 3 wishes to any who freed me. Yet, as the centuries passed, I grew bitter and vengeful. Now, my rage burns like a furnace, and I seek only revenge on those who dare disturb my prison. But you, fisherman, you showed me mercy in your fear and kindness in your caution. That is why I offer you this bargain." The fisherman listened intently, the weight of the genie's centuries settling in his heart. The storm outside mirrored the turmoil within his soul. "And what of the future?" the fisherman asked. The genie's eyes glowed faintly. "If you keep your promise, fortune may smile upon you. But betray me, and your soul shall be lost to the depths." The fisherman nodded slowly, resolve hardening like tempered steel. The fisherman, though poor in wealth, was rich in wit and courage. He looked deeply into the swirling smoke of the genie and spoke with calm determination. "O mighty genie, I accept your bargain. But before I release you, grant me a sign. Prove your power and your promise." The genie's eyes flashed like burning embers. "Ask what you will, mortal." The fisherman thought for a moment, then said, "Bring me a sign of your power here and now. Let me see a treasure that only one with your might could create." With a booming laugh, the genie raised his mighty hands. The room filled with a golden light as coins, jewels, and shimmering fabrics appeared, piling high beside the fisherman. But the fisherman held up his hand. "Enough," he said. "Let this be a reminder of what you offer. Now, release me from this jar, and I will honor our bargain." The genie hesitated but nodded slowly. The smoke began to swirl faster, growing and stretching until, with a thunderous roar, the genie stood tall before the fisherman. "Remember our pact," he warned. "Break it, and you shall regret it for all your days." The fisherman bowed deeply. "I will not forget." Outside, the night sky was clearing, stars shining like diamonds. The fisherman felt a strange mixture of fear and hope. What fate awaited him now, freed from the genie's prison? As the genie stretched his massive arms and took his first steps in freedom, the fisherman watched with a mixture of awe and caution. The powerful spirit's eyes gleamed like molten gold, yet there was a strange softness when they met the fisherman's gaze. "Your courage and wisdom have earned you respect," the genie said in a deep voice that rumbled like distant thunder. "As promised, I shall grant you fortune beyond your wildest dreams." With a wave of his hand, the ground beneath them trembled gently, and suddenly, piles of gold coins, precious gems, and silks shimmered into existence around the humble hut. The fisherman's wife gasped, her hands flying to her mouth in disbelief. But the genie raised a finger, signaling for patience. "Use this wealth wisely," he warned. "For with great fortune comes great responsibility." The fisherman nodded solemnly. "I will not forget where I came from." Yet, even as the riches dazzled the eyes, the fisherman's heart held a quiet question. What else did the genie desire? What was the true cost of this bargain? The genie's gaze darkened for a moment. "Remember, mortal, my freedom is bound by your promise. Betray me, and your fate will be sealed." The fisherman looked toward the horizon, where the first light of dawn painted the sky with pink and gold. A new chapter had begun, but the road ahead was uncertain. Days passed, and the fisherman's fortunes grew beyond his wildest dreams. The riches brought comfort to his family, and his humble home became a beacon of prosperity in the village. Yet, beneath the glittering gold and shimmering silks, a shadow stirred in the fisherman's heart, a shadow of doubt. At night, when the village was silent and the stars twinkled like distant eyes, the fisherman found himself gazing at the sealed brass jar, now resting quietly on his shelf. The genie had promised friendship and fortune, but the ancient spirit's warning echoed in his mind like a distant storm. "Betray me, and your fate will be sealed," are the words whispered in the cool night air. Could he trust a being who had been imprisoned for centuries, whose power could unravel kingdoms? His wife noticed the change. "What troubles you, my love?" she asked gently, seeing the worry etched upon his face. "I fear the cost of this gift," he admitted. The genie's freedom is tied to a promise I do not fully understand. What if his wrath is greater than his word? She took his hand and smiled softly. Then we will face it together. Wisdom is the greatest treasure, and you have that in abundance. The fisherman nodded, comforted but still wary. The tale was far from over. Weeks slipped by, and the fisherman's newfound wealth began to draw attention far beyond his village. Traders and nobles came seeking favors, hoping to share in his fortune. Yet, amidst the celebrations and offers, the fisherman remained humble, mindful of the genie's warning. One evening, as the sun dipped behind distant mountains, the genie appeared before him, not as a towering spirit, but in a calm, human form. His eyes glimmered with a quiet challenge. "Tell me, mortal," the genie said softly, "do you truly honor our pact? Will you stand by your word when temptation tests you?" The fisherman met the genie's gaze without flinching. "I have learned that promises bind not only the powerful but the humble as well. I will keep my word, no matter the cost." The genie smiled, a rare and fleeting expression. "Very well. A test awaits you. In 3 days, a stranger will come with a choice that will define your fate." With that, the genie vanished, leaving the fisherman alone with the rising moon and a heart filled with determination. The days ahead would reveal the true measure of his courage. On the 3rd day, as the sun cast long shadows over the marketplace, a stranger cloaked in deep indigo robes arrived. His eyes gleamed with a mysterious light, and his smile held secrets untold. The villagers whispered, watching cautiously as he approached the fisherman's home. "I bring a choice," the stranger said softly, voice smooth like desert sands. "A test of heart and will." The fisherman listened carefully as the stranger presented 2 paths, one of great wealth, secured by breaking his promise to the genie, and one of loyalty, risking all but preserving honor. "Choose wisely," the stranger warned. "The price of betrayal is steep, and the reward of faith is eternal." The fisherman's heart raced. His family's future hung in the balance, yet the weight of his word pressed heavily upon him. After a long silence, the fisherman spoke, voice steady and clear, "I will honor my promise, no matter the cost." The stranger nodded, a faint smile crossing his lips. "So be it." With that, the stranger vanished into the crowd, leaving behind a silence filled with both relief and uncertainty. As the stranger disappeared into the bustling market, a calm settled over the fisherman's heart. He had chosen loyalty over greed, honor over easy fortune. Though the path ahead was uncertain, he felt a quiet strength grow within him. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the genie appeared once more. His towering form shimmered with a golden light, his eyes soft but powerful. "You have passed the test," the genie declared. "Your faith and honor have earned you more than riches. I shall grant you 3 wishes, not as empty promises, but as blessings to guide your future." The fisherman bowed deeply, humbled and grateful. He thought carefully, knowing the weight of each wish. "For my first wish," he said slowly, "I ask for health and happiness for my family." The genie nodded, and a warm light enveloped the fisherman's home. "For my second," the fisherman continued, "I wish for wisdom to live a life of kindness and courage." Again, the genie's glow shimmered softly. "And for my final wish," the fisherman paused, then smiled gently. "I wish for the genie himself to be free, not bound by magic, but free to choose his own path. The genie's eyes widened in surprise, then softened with gratitude. "Your heart is pure," he said. "So shall it be." With a final burst of light, the magic lifted, and the genie's chains dissolved. As the last traces of magic faded, the genie stood tall and unbound for the first time in centuries. His immense form shimmered with newfound light, no longer constrained by ancient spells or chains. "I am free," he said softly, "and not by force, but by the kindness and wisdom of a mortal man." The fisherman watched as the genie's eyes sparkled with gratitude and hope. "What will you do now, Great Spirit?" he asked. The genie smiled, a radiant, gentle smile. "I will wander the earth, no longer a captive of vengeance or anger. I will seek to aid those who are lost, to guide the faithful, and to protect the innocent." With a graceful nod, the genie turned toward the sea. The moonlight reflected off the waves, casting silver paths that seemed to lead him home. Before departing, the genie reached into the air and summoned a small, glowing pearl. "Take this," he said, "a token of our bond. When in need, call upon me, and I shall come." The fisherman accepted the pearl, feeling its warmth pulse like a heartbeat in his palm. As the genie vanished into the night, the fisherman felt a peace he had never known. With the genie freed and the glowing pearl safe in his hand, the fisherman awoke the next morning to a world transformed. The sun rose gently, painting the sky in hues of gold and rose, and the village seemed brighter, as if touched by a blessing. Word of the fisherman's fortune and wisdom spread far and wide, but he remained humble, sharing his wealth and knowledge generously. The pearl glowed softly each time he held it, a comforting reminder of the promise made and the friendship forged. One day, as he cast his net into the shimmering sea, he whispered a prayer, not for gold or riches, but for peace and protection over his family and village. And though the sea kept its secrets, the fisherman knew deep in his heart that he was no longer alone. For somewhere beyond the horizon, a powerful friend watched over him, a spirit freed by kindness, bound now by respect. The fisherman smiled, ready to face whatever tides the future might bring. Years passed, and the tale of the fisherman and the genie became legend in the coastal villages. Mothers told their children of the brave man who outwitted a powerful spirit, teaching them the value of wisdom, patience, and honor. The fisherman's family thrived, not merely because of the genie's gifts, but through the kindness and courage he had shown. The glowing pearl remained a cherished symbol, passed down through generations as a reminder that true power lies not in wealth, but in the heart. Travelers came from distant lands to seek the fisherman's counsel, inspired by his story and the promise of friendship between man and spirit. And though the fisherman's hair grew grey and his steps slowed, his spirit remained bright, a beacon of hope in a world where legends come alive. Under the same endless sky, the genie watched from afar, proud of the mortal who had freed him and honored their bond. The sea whispered its secrets still, but now it carried the song of friendship, faith, and freedom. As twilight painted the sky with hues of purple and gold, the fisherman sat by the shore, the glowing pearl resting gently in his palm. The sea breeze carried the familiar scent of salt and adventure, whispering stories of distant lands and unseen wonders. He thought back to the day he had cast his net and pulled forth the brass jar, the beginning of a journey that had tested his courage, wisdom, and heart. The genie's freedom had not only changed his fate but had woven a timeless bond between man and spirit, a bond sealed by trust, honor, and kindness. From that day forward, whenever storms threatened the village or hope seemed lost, the fisherman would hold the pearl and call upon his powerful friend. And the genie, ever faithful, would answer, bringing calm to the seas and light to the darkest nights. And so, under the eternal sky of the desert and the sea, the tale of the fisherman and the genie lives on, a story whispered on the wind, told by the stars, and cherished by all who believe in the power of mercy and friendship. The end, or perhaps, just the beginning.